2 days to go, or at least 2 days to go, so for those who have yet to mark their ballot paper. Let's get some analysis from one of Australia's most experienced journalists, the Australian's foreign editor, Sheridan, who joins me now from Melbourne. Tight polls, everyone's in a war now, Greg, to get their final messages up before Saturday. We've still got quite a block of undecideds. Everyone's watching closely to see where they might fall. Why then is the opposition leader doing less, not more? We had another gaffe out there today. I'm alive to the fact that he's actually their biggest risk to winning on Saturday night. Now, if they don't trust him to stuff up, why on earth should we?
Well, you're absolutely right, Peter. It's been a weird campaign for Albo. Albo has made a lot of gaffes, a lot of gaffes, and that's very strange. And yet, peculiarly, people are kind of forgiving. He's a version of our Joe Biden in a way. I'm not saying he's intellectually challenged like Biden is, but sort of Albo seems like a nice bloke, and voters seem to be forgiving of him. Whereas, but nonetheless, the Liberals rightly make his inexperience and so forth a central point of their campaign. Whereas Morrison seems on top of the detail, but he has no narrative at all. And that was a lovely episode with the kid, absolutely wonderful. But generally speaking, he is not liked. And a number of Liberal candidates have told me they don't want him in their seats because he's a net negative for them. And he has no redeeming narrative. You know, Howard wasn't always that popular, but he had a tremendously powerful economic and social narrative, and security narrative. So both leaders, in a sense, are a danger for both of their sides. And I'm not surprised that Albo wants more controlled events. It's a wonderful thing in Australian democracy that the leaders do these daily press conferences, and he should do them right to the end, and he should be held to account for his costings and so forth.
Yeah, but it's more than just wanting controlled events. I get that. I've done election campaigns with an opposition leader. Now they're hiding from the media pack. They tried to drop the media pack on the move to Brisbane. The word is tonight they've dropped the media pack. Albo's in Sydney and the pack's now back in Canberra. I mean, it's a big job. You've been at close quarters with prime ministers on the left and the right. It's a huge job. It requires temperament, absolutely, proven competence. The issue with this bloke is, I don't think he's up to the job. He might be likeable, but, when you go in to have a brain surgery operation, you don't want to like your surgeon. You want them to be competent. You want them to be up to the job. The problem here is, I think we could end up on Saturday night with a prime minister that isn't deserving of the top position in our country.
Yeah, well, that's true. I guess you never know until someone gets there. Certainly Labor held that view very sincerely about John Howard, and Paul Keating never recovered from being defeated by John Howard because he held him in very low esteem. But it has been a poor campaign by Albo. There's no doubt about that. It's been a poor campaign, and we just don't know if he's up to the job or not. To be honest with you, so I got a lot of admiration for Scott Morrison and everything. I don't accept all of the dreadful caricatures about him. But frankly, I think this has been a very hollow government as well. I don't think there's any compelling narrative that tells me why this government needs to be re-elected. It's going to have $1 trillion of debt. Labor will have $1 trillion plus $8 billion. It doesn't seem to be. They're as woke. They're both as woke as folk. We're going to get to net zero 1 minute earlier under Labor than under the Liberals. It's. I think both sides really have put in a tremendously underwhelming performance, and I'm not surprised. And I think it's crazy to vote for an independent, but I'm not surprised that so many people are doing so.
I know there is a feeling that we're back in 2019 where, you might like me, or in that case, you might know much about me, but the other bloke would be worse. I think we're still in that the other bloke would be worse. They're pointing fingers both ways this time round. Talk to me about the Quad. I made the point last night, if Prime Minister Albanese gets sworn in on the Sunday and heads off to Japan with Penny Wong, back in Australia, there'll be all the factional warlords carving up his ministry. He does not get to choose who is in his ministry under Labor's rules. I presume he'd also have to get sworn in Richard Marles, so that there was at least an acting Prime Minister here. We know Miles is likely to be the Deputy Prime Minister if they win. You'll be sympathetic to him going to the Quad. I think the Quad's very important. But I also think, knowing all the things that happen once the government changes, here at home, they're pretty important too.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Peter. I mean, you make a very good point. I think in a sense this has been a bit overboomed, this story, and it's Albo's fault, because why did he start talking about it? Very strange, very undisciplined for him to start talking about it. It only comes into consideration if we get an astonishingly clear-cut victory on Saturday night. He's got to not only win, he's got to win a clear majority, and they've got to be in seats which are in no doubt. Now, that hasn't been the case really in the last 2 elections. So I think there's every chance that it simply doesn't happen, and Morrison has to go as the caretaker. Now, we're dealing with 3 other mature democracies. They understand about elections. They won't hold it against us if the new guy can't be there. If it should be that it's a very clear-cut result, then I think it's worth Albanese making the effort. You're absolutely right. Miles would have to be caretaker Prime Minister, not caretaker, acting Prime Minister. And I think you should go straight up and straight back, like your old boss used to do, fly all through the night, and be away for the absolute minimum number of hours that you can be away. But actually, I think it's probably not likely to happen, because even if he ends up getting, say, 78 seats or 79, probably 4 or 5 of them won't be absolutely clear on the night. Therefore, I don't think... And if Morrison goes there as a caretaker, he's not going to be blackguarding the incoming Australian government. I mean, the previous Japanese Prime Minister attended a Quad in the last days of his Prime Ministership. It'd be a pity for Albo to miss the chance to, get to know Biden and Modi and the Japanese PM personally. But I think he was very silly to talk about it. These are the sort of things which surely you undertake privately, and it's quite unlikely to happen. Therefore, it was a bit dumb to canvass it, I think. And it looks presumptuous. It looks like you're measuring the date before you're there.
And he's not naive. He's been in the parliament for 26 years. And as he repeatedly tells us, Greg, he was once, for a couple of months, Australia's Deputy Prime Minister. So, he can't be saying that he's up to the job in one breath and then also getting a leave pass for these sort of ingenue sort of mistakes. Again, I just don't think he's up to it. Anyway, we'll see where we land on Sunday morning. Thank you for your time.